Welcome back, everybody. So today I'm going to be reading a book. It's The Lightning Thief. You guys can stay for it. You don't have to. I just felt like reading and felt like I should read to you guys. Some of you are probably going to be watching hockey. That's fine. I'm getting the notifications for the Vegas game, so yay. Tampa lost earlier, so I was a little disappointed about that. My minor team league, the Pensacola Ice Flyers, lost only by like 1 point. They were tied for a while until about the third period. Excuse me. Until about the third period, and then the other team scored a point, so they lost. But well, I'm going to be reading, so hopefully that helps you focus a little bit, Kat. But hi anyway, in case you don't decide to stay. But yeah, I am reading The Lightning Thief. Since you guys weren't too interested in Harry Potter, sadly, I've been trying to find a different book that all of you would like, or at least tolerate. So, Chapter 1. I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is, close this book right now. Believe what lie your mom or dad told you about your birth and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid, reading this because you think it's fiction, great. Read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that. I could start at any point in my short, miserable life to prove it. But things really started to go bad last May when our 6th grade class took a field trip to Manhattan. 26 mental case kids and 2 teachers on a yellow school bus, heading to the Metropolitan Museum of Arts to look at ancient Greek and Roman stuff. I know, it sounds like torture. Most Yancey field trips were. But Mr. Brunner, our Latin teacher, was leading this trip, so I had hopes. Mr. Brunner was this middle-aged guy in a motorized wheelchair. He had thinning hair and a scruffy beard and a frayed tweed jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and jokes and let us play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons, so he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. I hoped the trip would be okay. At least, I hoped that for once I wouldn't get in trouble. Boy, was I wrong. See, bad things happen to me on field trips. Like at my 5th grade school, when we went to Saratoga Battlefield, I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon. I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but of course I got expelled anyway. And before that, at my 4th grade school, when we took a behind-the-scenes tour of the Marine World Shark Pool, I sort of hit the wrong lever on the catwalk, and our class took an unplanned swim. And the time before that, well, you get the idea. This trip I was determined to be good. All the way into the city, I put up with Nancy Bobofit, the freckly, redhead kleptomaniac girl, hitting my best friend Grover in the back of the head with a chunk of peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. It's Katie Whitehead, and not the fourth. But hi, Carson, anyway. Grover was an easy target. He was scrawny. He cried when he got frustrated. He must have been held back several grades because he was the only sixth grader with acne and start of a wispy beard on his chin. On top of all that, he was crippled. He had a note excusing him from PE for the rest of his life because he had some kind of muscular disease in his legs. He walked funny, like every step hurt him, but don't let that fool you. You should have seen him run when it was enchilada day in the cafeteria. Yes, it's the Lightning Thief book, the first one. Anyway, Nancy Bobofit was throwing wads of sandwich that stuck to his curly brown hair. Because he's a satyr, so he's not really human. I don't think he's actually in 6th grade. I think he's Percy's protector, so I think he just was sent to that school. I don't know. Was throwing wads of sandwich that stuck in his curly brown hair, and she knew I couldn't do anything back to her because I was already on probation. The headmaster had threatened me with death by in-school suspension if anything bad, embarrassing, or even mildly entertaining happened on this trip. I'm going to kill her, I mumbled. Grover tried to calm me down. It's okay. I like peanut butter. He dodged another piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it. I started to get up, but Grover pulled me back to my seat. You're already on probation, he reminded me. You know who will get blamed if anything happens. Looking back on it, I wish I had decked Nancy Bobofit right then and there. In-school suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. Mr. Brunner led the museum tour. He rode up front in his wheelchair, guiding us through the big, echoey galleries, past marble statues and glass cases full of really old black and orange pottery. It blew my mind that this stuff had survived for 2,000, 3,000 years. He gathered us around a 13-foot tall stone column with a big sphinx on the top and started telling us how it was a grave marker, a stele, for a girl about our age. He told us about the carvings on the side. I was trying to listen to what he had to say because it was kind of interesting, but everyone around me was talking, and every time I told them to shut up, the other teacher chaperone, Mrs. Dodds, would give me the evil eye. I agree, Carson. Fuck Nancy. Mrs. Dodds was this little math teacher from Georgia who always wore a black leather jacket even though she was 50 years old. She looked mean enough to ride a Harley right into your locker. She had come to Yancey halfway through the year when our last math teacher had a nervous breakdown. From her first day, Mrs. Dodds loved Nancy Bobofit and figured I was devil's spawn. She would point her crooked finger at me and say, "Now, honey," real sweet, and I knew I was going to get after-school detention for a month. Okay, Cat, that was random. One time, after she'd made me erase answers out of an old math workbook until midnight, I told Grover I didn't think Mrs. Dodds was human. He looked at me, real serious, and said, "You're absolutely right." Mr. Brunner kept talking about great funeral art. Finally, Nancy Bobofit snickered something about the naked guy on the Stelly and I turned around and said, "Will you shut up?" I came out louder than I meant it. The whole group laughed. Mr. Brunner stopped his story. "Mr. Jackson," he said, "do you have a comment?" My face was totally red. I said, "No, sir." Mr. Brunner pointed to one of the pictures on the wall. "Perhaps you'll tell us what this picture represents." I looked at the carving and I felt a flush of relief because I actually recognized it. "That's Kronos eating his kids, right?" "Yes," said Mr. Brunner, obviously not satisfied. "And he did this because..." Well, I racked my brain to remember. Kronos was the king god and... God? Mr. Brunner asked. Titan, I correct myself. "And he didn't trust his kids who were the gods. So, Kronos ate them, right? But his wife hid baby Zeus and gave Kronos a rock to eat instead. And later, when Zeus grew up, he tricked his dad, Kronos, into barfing up his brothers and sisters." Ew. No. Spider-Man. Oh, wait. I thought you said Spider-Man was better than Batman. Both are just as crazy. Why are you trying to stay up late? You have school tomorrow. And so there was this big fight between gods and titans, I continued, and the god crunch bars. I've never had a crunch bar. I like Swedish Fish. My favorite kind of candy are Reese's. Yeah, or Kit Kats. Oh yeah, that's right. You told me that. Spring break. That's such an odd like vacation time though. No, I've never had a crunch bar. I think Jordan likes them though. Some snickers from the group. Behind me, Nancy Boba Fett mumbled to his friend, like we're going to use this in real life. Like it's going to say on our job applications, "Please explain why Kronos ate his kids." Sorry, Kat. "And why, Mr. Jackson," Brunner said, "to paraphrase Miss Boba Fett's excellent question, does this matter in real life?" "Busted," Grover muttered. "Shut up," Nancy hissed, her face even brighter red than her hair. At least Nancy got packed too. Mr. Brunner was the only one who ever caught her saying anything wrong. He had radar ears. I thought about his question and shrugged. "I don't know, sir." "I see." Mr. Brunner looked disappointed. "Well, half credit, Mr. Jackson. Zeus did indeed feed Kronos a mixture of mustard and wine, which made him disgorge his other 5 children, who, of course, being immortal gods, had been living and growing up completely undigested in the Titan's stomach. The gods defeated their father and sliced him to pieces with his own scythe, and scattered his remains in Tartarus, the darkest part of the underworld. That's cool, I guess. On that happy note, it's time for lunch. Mrs. Dodds, would you lead us back outside? The class drifted off, the girls holding their stomachs, the guys pushing each other around and acting like doofuses. Grover and I were about to follow them when Mr. Brunner said, "Mr. Jackson?" I knew that was coming. I told Grover to keep going. Then I turned towards Mr. Brunner. "Sir?" Mr. Brunner had this look that wouldn't let you go. Intense brown eyes that could have been 1,000 years old and had seen everything. "You must learn the answer to my question," Mr. Brunner told me. "About the Titans?" about real life and how your studies apply to it. Oh. What you learn from me, he said, is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I will accept only the best from you, Percy Jackson. I wanted to get angry. This guy pushed me so hard. I mean, sure, it was kind of cool on tournament days when he dressed up in a statue of Roman armor and shouted, "What ho!" and challenged us. Sword pointed against chalk to run to the board and name every Greek and Roman person who ever lived and their mother and what god they worshipped. But Mr. Brunner expected me to be as good as everyone else, despite the fact that I had dyslexia and attention deficit disorder and had never made above a C- in my life. No. He didn't expect me to be as good. He expected me to be better, and I just can't learn all those names and facts and much less spell them correctly. Pretty much. I mumbled something about trying harder while Mr. Brunner took a long, sad look at the Stelly like he had been at that girl's funeral. He told me to go outside and eat my lunch. The class gathered on the front steps of the museum where we could watch the foot traffic along Fifth Avenue. Overhead, a huge storm was brewing with clouds blacker than I'd ever seen over the city. It's because I'm using a different app, not YouTube. So it's not going to change it because it doesn't use, because Nightbot doesn't work with this. Nightbot isn't dead, it just doesn't work with this app because it's not through YouTube. This is a way to stream both YouTube and Twitch, and I don't have Nightbot on Twitch. Hey, if you can get me up to 1,000 subscribers, I'll be able to stream on YouTube and we don't have a nurse tonight. I will try tomorrow if I'm not too tired. Excuse me. I figured maybe it was global warming or something because the weather all across New York State had been weird since Christmas. We'd had massive snowstorms, flooding, wildfires from lightning strikes. I wouldn't have been surprised if this was a hurricane blowing in. Want some water? He's already in bed. I'm not gonna wake him up just to bring him in bed with me. That would be mean. Nobody else seemed to notice. Some of the guys were pelting pigeons with Lunchable crackers. Nancy Bobofit was trying to pickpocket something from a lady's purse, and of course Mrs. Dodds wasn't seeing a thing. What do you mean, spoken yet? Like, is he talking? He says a few words. Not sentences, but most 3-year-olds don't say full sentences anyway. It's the final countdown. I wonder if this video is gonna get a copyright strike. My last one did for some reason. He says like one word sentences. Like he'll say up, and he'll say bath, and bubbles. He says mama and dada. He says papa. He tries to say help. He says Yeah, that's about it. Or at least those are the ones that I can remember. He probably says other ones, but, well, he does a lot of sign language. That's his way of communicating right now. But like any other kid, like, he makes up his own words and he makes up his own signs. So it's sometimes hard to really understand what he's saying and how much of it is just random noises. It's a physical disorder. He has Noonan syndrome. It's a genetic disorder, but because of his trach, he's a little delayed when it comes to speech. So he doesn't really have a mental delay, not really. It's more of just a physical one. Once his trach comes out, he'll probably start talking a lot more. By the way, our dog chewed on my glasses and now the wire's poking out, but I don't have the money for new glasses right now. It mostly affects his heart, so he has something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which means that some of the chambers in his heart, the muscle is a lot thicker than it should be for someone his age. So it's more of he has to grow into his heart pretty much. But because of the thick muscle, his heart is having to work a lot harder, which means that he has a higher heart rate. So someone his age would normally have a heart rate between 90 and 115, maybe 120 at the highest. His heart rate, if he doesn't get his medications, his heart rate can go up to like 325. Sometimes, like, the highest I saw was when he was sick at the end of January, and that was 360, I think, was the highest I saw. It might, we don't know for sure. We're hoping that it'll go away when he gets older. He's not really interested in stuffed animals, but I mean, he might like a teddy bear. He has a bunny rabbit he sleeps with sometimes. He's actually supposed to be getting a surgery done once his trach comes out, where they'll burn off some of that extra muscle. We're hoping that if that surgery goes as planned, that his heart rate will slow down, so he won't have to be on all of his medications. He's really cute, I know. But if the surgery doesn't work out, then we're probably gonna have to look at some kind of heart transplant once he's older. So it really all depends on this surgery. But that won't be until he hits puberty, so like 15 or something. What age do you think the thickness of it? So the amount of thickness that he has right now would be normally for a kid who's like 9 or 10. His heart is the size of a 3-year-old with the thickness of a 9 or 10-year-old. And so there's not as much room for his heart to pump blood. So because there's not a lot of room, his heart is having to work harder to get as much blood as his body needs. So he's on a heart medication to relax some of those muscles so they're not having to work as hard, which makes it so the blood flows a little bit easier. His medication also helps with his high heart rate, which I forgot what the actual medical term is, but the initials for it, or the abbreviation for it, is SVT. So he's on a medication to help lower his heart rate, because if he doesn't get it, there is a chance for him to have a heart attack, because his heart rate gets too high, which I never thought could happen with a 3-year-old, but I agree, Kat. When he was younger, I was a lot more concerned about a heart attack with him, just because of how sick he was. But even within the past year or so, he's improved so much, and he's so strong. I'm not as worried, but it's like still in the back of, why does Gideon have IMAX? Is he not gonna? He gets quite a bit of sleep. That's one thing with his Noonan syndrome. Is his eyes can look a little bit more swollen. Also, he has super bad allergies, and so that causes swelling in his eyes and his eyebrows, sometimes in his ear area. Plus, his ears are lower, because like his ears are like starting here. So like they're small, and they're like that size. They're small, and they're really low, which makes him like susceptible to ear infections, and it's such a pain to, like, it's hard to look in his ears because his ear canal is all weird because of how low they are. He's going to be going to a school called a Montessori school. It's kind of a mixture between homeschooled and public school. It has the curriculum of being homeschooled, where all the kids will go at their own pace, and I mean, you could have a kid who's Gideon's age with a kid who's like 5 if they're learning a little slower than everybody else. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's what we're wanting to do. If that's not a possibility, I'd love to homeschool him, at least for a little bit, but I'm not sure if that's financially possible for us. I mean, each school is different. If Gideon's grandparents had their way, he'd be going to a Christian school, so. I went to a Catholic school for 4 years and I hated it. But, I mean, each school is different. But, I mean, isn't that what that's what you tell me about high school.
Actually?
Yeah. Hey, either Kat or Carson, did you guys get the update for me streaming? Or were you just like on YouTube and saw that I was streaming?
To be fair, I wasn't paying attention to my phone, so I might have still see it.
Sorry. I learned subtraction with a board with checkers, and I moved them around. I don't remember how I learned subtraction. Yeah, they said they all got it. I need a plug in my phone,
So,
even though it's gonna overheat.
I did an experiment when I started that like jam mode that I was playing, right? This will be interesting. So I made two guys. One is a high elite, one was a high franchise. Right?
Okay.
I started them up. I didn't change their attributes at all. It's a basic player, so they're I think like 50 overall or something like that, right?
My high school was a typical white, all white, except for like, I had like 2 kids in my class that were black.
Our state was all white. Every school in
Shut up,
Vermont
Jordan.
was an
I'm not
all-white
talking
school.
about that. I didn't like any of the kids, and I only liked one of my teachers. Anyway, what were you saying?
Anyway, so I made an enforcer and a sniper.
Okay.
Both 50 overall. One was a high elite, one was a higher franchise. I made the sniper the high elite. I made the enforcer the high franchise. Guess what they were overall out of the draft? And this is making them the youngest age you can be, and having them 3 years in the juniors playing before they're eligible for the draft.
Okay.
The sniper was 78 overall, pretty decent. The enforcer, 81 overall.
Well.
So it just so that just goes to show that if you create a character on there or a person on there, and you make them a high franchise, no matter what you put their play type as, they will be minimum 81 out of the draft.
I was a class of 76 kids, and only 2 of them were black. Well, let's see. 2 of them were black, 1 of them was Asian, and like 3 of them were like Native Americans. So I mean, we had
2 Asians and